All right, good morning, everyone. It is 11 o'clock Central Time. For those of you on the East Coast, good afternoon. My name is Brian Dar, and I'm a business process consultant with XBM. And today we're going to talk about Agile HR, or actually Agile approaches to HR. Specifically, we're going to talk about how to use Agile methodology from the software industry to improve HR processes and tools, which the two may seem incongruous, but I think you'll find by the end that there's a lot of really good methods that we can take from the software industry and apply to our HR practices. So when I say HR, it's good to define first that I'm talking about the life cycle of an employee from hiring through training all the way through the end of the relationship. So we're focusing mostly on the human-centric practices of HR, not necessarily the legal practices, although those do come into play when we're looking at the tools that we're going to talk about today. So HR is pretty clear to most people. Agile, on the other hand, is clear to not many people. So really quick today, we're going to do an introduction. We're going to look at tools. We're going to look at some case studies, and then we're going to take some questions at the end. There's a Q&A widget in the Zoom webinar that you can type questions in whenever you need, and I'll try to look at those periodically, but we'll definitely have time at the end for them. So let's hop into the introduction. What is Agile? So about almost 20 years ago, a couple of software developers got together and wrote the Agile Manifesto, which you can check out at agilemanifesto.org. And a lot of these ideas are not necessarily new, but applied to the software industry, they felt new. And these have also evolved since then. There's, business processes and methodologies are always changing. And this is an example of that. So when it first started, it was just 4 main points and then 12 principles living behind it. So the first one is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So people were finding already in the early 2000s that everything was over processed, too much bureaucracy. And the strength of companies lies in the people that work for them. So you want to support individuals and their interactions with each other over having to go through every single step of the process. The next point was working software over comprehensive documentation. This is one that a lot of people in heavy bureaucracy industries feel when you have to document every single thing. Most of this came from when they were developing software. People would come up with these huge product requirements long before they'd even built a proof of concept. And so you would have to have everything so finely documented that it actually made it very, very difficult for people to branch out from those predefined requirements into the working software that they would eventually build. So the idea here in the new way, in the Agile, big A Agile way, is to document only when necessary and not too much, which is a big change from big bureaucracy. The next one is customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So we're looking to work with our customers. We're not looking to beat them over the heads with contracts. There's actually a new movement called Agile contracts. There's a Wikipedia article that you can look up to learn more about it. But this is all about, again, kind of going back to the relationships between people and not process. And then finally, responding to change over following a plan. This is kind of what I mentioned earlier with the working software over documentation. So one of the ideas to responding to change over following a plan is to delay decision-making until the last reasonable moment. In other words, we think we're going to build something or we think we're going to design a process. Great. Let's not decide too soon what the end result's going to be. We're going to gather information, and as we gather information, now we'll start limiting down our options. But if you limit your options too early, you may never hit the optimal solution. So instead, the Agile Manifesto was advocating focusing on what you and the business need right now, as opposed to what somebody thought you would need 6 months earlier. So that's where Agile came from. But really, let me talk more about what it really is. It is specifically about empowering the bottom tier of the worker, the people actually building software, or in this case, the people actually working in HR, the people actually carrying out policies, or even the employees beyond them that are affected by the policies. It's about being adaptable, so responding to change as quickly as possible. It's about transparency. So Agile uses tools and not a lot of locked boxes. It prefers transparency. Obviously, where there are legal and personal requirements, you can make things opaque, which in an HR world is very important to do sometimes. But the rest of it, the process behind creating things, should generally be transparent, at least in the software world. There is constant retrospection and ceremonies that support retrospection. So at the end of a certain iteration of work, the team gets together, they talk to each other. How did it go? How did we feel? It can get even a little touchy-feely at this point, but we're humans and we have feelings. So it's important to support that. And there's ceremonies such as daily stand-ups. They're called stand-ups because you have to stand up. You're not allowed to sit down unless you're unable to. And the reason for that is so the meeting stays short. Nobody wants to be standing around for an hour. So it supports a high-touch team collaboration, and then they get to go back to work. Continuous delivery and frequent iteration. The idea here is that, at least in the software world, we are building incremental pieces of value and shipping them more quickly to the customer. Value is never realized until the customer has the piece of software or the product in their hand. And the faster that you can get what the customer needs and get it into their hands, the faster that cycle, the more you're going to beat your competition. Now, this applies to a lot of business processes in general. If you discover a need from an employee, the faster you can respond to that need, the happier the employee is going to be. At the same time, you want to do frequent small bits of iteration, little changes as things go. You don't have to build a perfect process from the beginning. And this is huge. This is actually really hard for me when I started working in this industry. I wanted to build it right from the first day. And Agile says, no, build what you need right now. Circulate it around the stakeholders, and then build the next piece, and then the next piece. And so the whole time, you're still delivering value to your stakeholders. Focus on teams and individuals. We already talked about that in the original manifesto. But really, all this comes down to, we're focused on the outcome of our processes, not the output. Filling out 100 TPS reports doesn't mean anything if nobody ever reads the TPS reports. If it's for compliance, we can do that a different way. We can have things automatically tracked so that we're not so worried about people wasting their time manually filling things out. All of this boils down to, we are building repeatable processes that improve over time, and we're basically breaking away from heavy bureaucracy. If all that sounds confusing, if it's new to you, not a problem. There's a lot of reading that you can do on this. Mostly though, the reason why we're talking about Agile HR today is because people are starting to take these Agile processes and move them out beyond the software world, because they're all really, when you boil them down, human-focused processes, and we're all humans working in companies. So these processes apply across a wide variety of departments and industries. All right, so let's talk about why Agile HR. So there is a competitive advantage across all departments in a business at all levels of a company that comes with speed and adaptability. If you're faster at adapting to the needs of your employees, and even possibly more important, if you're faster at adapting to the needs of a changing labor force, which I think we're all experiencing right now, you'll have a stronger advantage over your competition. You'll be the one getting the good people first and not getting the responses saying, sorry, I already took another job. Iterative activities are simply better. Again, you don't want to build a process or an entire department from the beginning perfectly. You never know even what you don't know. And so the longer you wait to put the little things in place, the more those little things are going to fit with the needs of the company, the employees, the coworkers. We also want to be much more responsive. We want to be more responsive to our internal employees and to our potential hires, and also to changing regulations. We want to improve the quality of our work, and we basically do that by constant retrospection, working together as a team. By supporting the teams that we're on, we're actually making humans interact better. And then finally, speed. Agile is all about speed. It's about shortening the time between ideation and between initial customer needs, internal or external customers, and getting the value into their hands. So today, we're specifically talking about using Atlassian tools. Atlassian makes a wide variety of products, JIRA, Confluence, Bitbucket. If you listen to the radio, they advertise on the radio. And if you haven't used Atlassian tools before, we're going to look at some of those today. And we're going to look at using those tools, specifically JIRA and Confluence and JIRA Service Desk, which are flexible and iterative tools. We're going to look at applying those to HR functions. Additionally, I think you'll find that the tools that I'm going to demonstrate today are going to surface knowledge and transparency in a way that a lot of people aren't used to. And they're also going to help things not fall through the cracks. So the tools that I'm showing today, they're not necessarily meant to replace ADP or Workday or any number of the large software tools that you're already using. What they can do is for a small and medium-sized business, especially for the price point, you can build processes that do replace those. Or for a very large company, you can actually use these tools and have them feed into, through pretty simple integrations, into these larger processes. So if you find that the frontline employees prefer working in these transparent, open, and flexible tools, that's great. You can then plug those into your larger software later on as well. So first, we're going to look at process tools. We're going to look specifically at JIRA, and we're going to look at how JIRA supports workflows, accountability, big visible information radiators, which is an Agile term. It may be in other industries too, I'm not sure, and also how it supports compliance. So let's hop over into JIRA. So this is a basic issue screen in JIRA. This is a single record, and in this case, I have made a single record to support one employee called Montgomery Scott, which if you like Star Trek, he's from Star Trek. And basically we have his name, we have his email address, we have his phone number, we have his address, we have skills that he has, his t-shirt size. Now, I as an administrator, I can add any number of fields, I can add a bunch of free text fields. So one of the ways that I can track an employee without using a large bit of uncustomizable software is I can create whatever fields I need within JIRA to track specific information about an employee through their life cycle. In this situation, though, I'm using this not to track an employee, I'm using it to track a potential trainer for my software business. So we teach a lot of classes on Angular framework and software development, and we are always looking for better and better instructors. So in this situation, we have built a workflow that this potential candidate is going to pass through. And this workflow, this is just the view screen, but it is incredibly flexible. And as an administrator, I can create any number of transitions. I can create new statuses through this workflow. I can make it as flexible or as inflexible as my employees need it to be as we track new hires. So specifically in this situation, Montgomery Scott is going to come in as an inquiry. We're going to take him through some introductory steps. We're going to review his information. Then he's going to watch one of our classes. We're then going to actually only now have an interview with him. We're then going to look at contracts. He'll then be an assistant instructor for a number of months. After that, he'll be approved to teach, in which case he's no longer in training. He's now a full-fledged instructor. Or at any point during this process, from any status, I can mark him as not a fit. He can go into closed, and it'll mark him as not a fit. Or at any point during this process, I can move him into on hold. So workflows put guardrails around processes, and they allow users to perform repeatable tasks without worrying about the process. So in this case, if you have an onboarding process for your employees, you can lay that out, all of the steps here, and you don't have to worry about, where is this person in the life cycle, because it is always visible right here on their card, right here where their status is. This will also allow you, once you have a process in place, once you have this smooth pipeline for onboarding employees in place, it'll also allow you to figure out where you're wasting time on handoffs and approvals. Basically, if you take some of the lean manufacturing principles of business, you can figure out what your work in process is. You can discover that, we have a huge bottleneck right here under interview or maybe under contracts. So maybe we need to either space out the pipeline a little more. Maybe we need to get more interviewers in. Maybe we need to get more contracts in. And what's nice about this tool is you have all the data about everybody running through this workflow, and you can actually see where they're stacking up. You can get a cumulative flow diagram or a control chart. You can see the cycle time from birth to death of this issue. It's really quite helpful for analyzing your own process. You could also do the same thing to track professional development. So something we do in our company that I unfortunately cannot show is we do have cards for our employees, and we have things like skills. Now, the employee can see the card, but they can't edit it. Only their manager can edit this particular record of that employee. So what's nice is that we can help people through professional development. As they attain new skills, we can start tracking that. And we can use this during our employee reviews. We can also attach other things to this issue representing the employee. We could attach corrective actions. We could attach information about conferences that they have attended or certifications that they have achieved. We could even put dates associated with those certifications to help them know when to renew. We can subscribe that user to automatic email alerts that will tell them, hey, your whatever certification is set to expire in 1 month. Please let us know if you plan on upgrading it. So you can basically build whatever kind of employee tracker you want, or whatever kind of process tracker you want in this software. And that's something that our company does frequently. Another thing that I've seen this software used for is tracking individuals for clinical drug trials. Each person is a record, and then each trial that they go through is another record that gets associated to their user. Each test that they have to pass is another record that gets associated to the user. And you see all of that start to stack up on this card, so you get a bird's eye view of everything that's going on for this person throughout the life cycle of their time with your company. All right, so accountability. These tools also support accountability. One of the ways they do that is you can create a step in the workflow that requires approval. So for example, in this, in this transition, in this approved to teach transition, I can actually set up a notification to my boss or to the training manager or to anybody I need. And I could make it so that either they have to approve it mid-transition, or maybe they're the only one that can actually move this all the way through. So we can restrict transitions, we can restrict editing by role or by user to sort of maintain accountability. You know, not just anybody can push someone through the workflow, only a manager can make it past certain steps. Excuse me. Another useful thing in this tool is compliance. So a lot of people wind up creating reports, or they wind up doing change management logs because there needs to be a complete history of what's going on. Well, here actually, every single issue is automatically updated with every change that was ever made to it. Any field that was changed, any status change, anytime it's moved back and forth, all of those changes are tracked here automatically. So it actually makes compliance much easier. A lot of big tools do this too. I just want to show you that so you understand that that's not really a concern here either. The other useful thing that the software does is it creates big visible information radiators, which is this nice Agile term for essentially like a giant whiteboard or a giant dashboard. And one of the ways that it does that is through things called Kanban boards. So I'm going to click here, and now I see a bird's eye view of everyone in my pipeline going through this trainer recruitment process. So in this situation, we have a couple of statuses mapped to getting started. Now they're attending classes, now they're in contracts, now they're an assistant, now they're on hold, or maybe they're done. And I can choose what to show and when on this board, on this Kanban board. I can also move people back and forth through the process without even having to go into the cards, which is quite helpful. Another useful thing about this is that I can see where there's bottlenecks. I can see if 16 people are piled up under contracts. Well, then now I can see very, very quickly I need to get more people dealing with the contracts, or maybe more people dealing with the interview process. There's also things like cumulative flow diagrams, which I don't have enough data in this instance to show you, but I can just do a quick Google image search, and this is essentially what it looks like here. So I can see, number of new employees coming in, and number of people that have been through interviews. And if I see the slope of these lines diverge, like let's say that I'm managing a 500-person call center, and I've got pretty high turnover. I always need to be bringing new people into this call center. Well, if I see that the number of new people coming in is, tapering off or even flatlining, well, now I know that in about 1 month, I'm going to have a really big problem. So now I can get more marketing, or I can go talk to HR in this case to see if we can get more people into our pipeline. So the software automatically tracks information and then displays it to you when you need to see it in a much better way than just things on a spreadsheet. And really, the goal of a lot of the software is to get people off of spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are, particularly in the old world, one person maintains it, they save it on their hard drive, they have to share it. And even in the modern world with things like Google Sheets, spreadsheets are still not as visible as what we're seeing here. You could also make a dashboard of other HR information. You could have a dashboard displayed on a wall in the HR office that has things like, days until the next employee event, company calendar information, pie charts about hiring processes, number of, corrective actions over time is going down because the program that we've implemented is working, number of, well, and a lot of this might have to do with things that you can't advertise, but, number of problems just dropping. That would be nice to see. That'd be very motivating. Days on the job without a safety violation, that kind of thing. So this is JIRA in a really quick nutshell. You can build any kind of workflow process you want. You can create any kind of fields. You can track any kind of information that you want. And basically, JIRA is a database with a workflow engine and a permission scheme on top of it. So you also don't have to worry about visibility. We can make sure that only an employee and their manager can see any information about that employee. This would not be visible to everyone. And we can track that sort of visibility through compliance efforts as well automatically. All right, another tool that can be used for making HR more agile is a product called Confluence. So let me come over here to this one. Confluence is a documentation tool and somewhat of a competitor to SharePoint. And one of the major selling points of it is that it's just a lot cheaper and it's a lot easier to set up than SharePoint. So what you can do with this is you could build all of your policies within Confluence. So for example, now I haven't actually written any in here. I've just created some holding spaces, but we could have, this whole space is visible to every employee in the company, but only editable to certain members of the HR team. And so anybody can come here and then click on, leave, medical, paternity, FMLA. You can link to this from other internal sites or from other portals. And we could do other things like, PTO, sick bereavement leave policies, safe workplace policies. So, sexual harassment, power harassment, those sort of policies could be here. Social media policies could be here. And what is really nice about this is just a view page. If I have rights to edit, I can click edit and I can, make a change. And down here, I can have it automatically notify people that want to be notified. So you can subscribe to the HR space and get updates about changes to it. And once I update, and then if I make another change and update, well, now I can come to the page history. And so we are always in compliance. We always know what changed when, who changed something. And I can look back and forth between the current version. I can compare with the current version, and it'll actually highlight changes that were made in the document. So there's a full change history for every page and for every space. There's also a pretty robust permissioning section where I could make all of these pages visible, but only editable to some people. I could make draft pages invisible to the larger company, but visible to my internal HR team. Excuse me. There's also ways to make it so that you can have an approvals process for documents that are posted into this tool. So this is a collaborative way to write policies, have them posted, and they live in this sort of living document with a change history. So this supports the Agile methodology of, document only what you need to and only as much as you need to, and then get back to work. So hopefully this might be a useful tool for you as well. And again, I'm more than happy to talk about how to set this up. This is kind of what we do for a living. All right, so now let's look at, we've been through process tools, we've been through knowledge tools. Now I want to talk about process and knowledge tools together. So you can combine the what JIRA does and what Confluence does, and you can combine it into a service desk. Now, the idea of an HR service desk portal may or may not be new to you. There's this growing idea that every department in modern companies is a services department now. For example, facilities. If you need to have a toilet fixed, you could come to the facilities portal, and it's as simple as, and actually, if you came here, if I set the permissions right, anybody could get here, or I could set it only so internal employees can come here. This is all protected, and so you could log on to the company portal, click on facilities, and report a broken toilet, or you could request a room, or request a certain kind of cleaning, or request information for an event. In the same way, legal departments are now services department. You can submit contracts to have them reviewed. Purchasing, you can submit purchase requests to have them reviewed. And HR, in a way, is no different. HR provides a lot of internal services. So some of the better ones that I've seen used in a service desk portal. Well, let me show you how it works first. So if I land here in this HR service desk, I want to do a leave request, and sure enough, right here I can submit a leave request. And I haven't really configured much of these fields yet, but basically, vacation January 9th through 12th. Now, I can add a lot more fields here. But basically, I'm saying Brian Darr would like to take vacation from January 9th through 12th. And now, HR representatives can actually communicate back and forth through this portal. I'm not paying for this user to use this. This is the free side of the software. I can also cancel my request at any time as well as an end user. But let's look at some more options here. So one of the best things that I've ever seen is a kudos one, and I haven't filled out the fields for this yet. But basically, it's the company that makes the software, Atlassian. If you go to their HR portal, you can report something good that someone did. The fields include, name, short description, department that the person works for. And these all get bulk printed and then sent out afterwards automatically, mind you, which is pretty cool, because you can connect this to external systems, to printers, all that stuff. They get sent out, and then a week later, an employee gets a nice note saying, "Hey, thank you very much. You made my day better. Here's why," on their desk. Other useful things I've seen is if you're going to onboard a new employee, we can create dynamic forms. So we have a new employee name. They're going to start on X particular date, and then this is just an example of a very, very simple form. But you can make these very complicated and responsive. So new employee needs access to systems A, B, and C. All right, well, if they need system A, all the system A questions appear. If they need system B's questions also appear. So you can do a lot with this as well. Other useful things to use service desks for, if an employee is exiting, you could restrict this to their manager, and only their manager could come into this portal and activate this. We can do leave requests, travel requests, purchase requests if your HR department handles that, or if another department, you can move that over to their service portal. The reason that this is process and knowledge is that you can connect a knowledge base out of Confluence, what we were just looking at. I could connect all of this information to this request. And so as I'm clicking here, it will actually pull up knowledge base articles. Are you requesting leave? Did you know? And it can point them to information. So for example, maybe you don't need to do a leave request. You can say, hey, just talk to your manager, and you can have a whole page on that living over in Confluence. So you can combine HR knowledge bases and HR services and kind of have them support each other. The knowledge base fends off tickets, but when there is a ticket, it'll appear in a nice neat queue on the back end for your HR employees. They don't have to live in this system. You can just have it email them when a new thing comes in, or you can set up a system to have it just appear on one central screen in the HR department. And oh, someone needs to take care of this next. Service Desk also provides service level agreement timers as well. So in this situation, we can say that onboarding a new employee, it's going to take, let's see, what's our timer for that? You need to respond within 8 hours on a standard 9 to 5 calendar, and we can configure all of this as well. So the reason that people would want to use these tools versus the very large tools is they are incredibly flexible. It does not take a consultant to come in and make changes. You can make the changes. So it's highly iterative, it's transparent, it can be locked down when needed. And the price point is a lot better than some of these very, very large systems. But again, you can have these feed into the large systems as well, so that you can create a nice, responsive, worker-friendly front end where they can get work done, and you can still get all of the roll-up information into the large systems on the back end. All right, so for just a moment, I'm going to talk about my company, and then we're going to hop over into some case studies about ways that our company has taken HR practices and applied them to hiring and applied them to internal professional development and also continuous iteration process improvements. So really quick, XBM is a company that is a platinum solution partner with Atlassian. So we do lots of training. We do JIRA Bootcamp. We do Confluence Bootcamp. We train people on how to use Bitbucket, JIRA Service Desk, Portfolio, JIRA Align as well, which is a big software tool now. We do consulting. We go on site. We do remote consulting. We help stand up instances of the software for people and basically empower them to then take it and run with it afterwards. We don't want to be stuck on the phone forever. We want people trained into how to use these and to how to manage them themselves. We also build custom development. We have a sister company called Oasis Digital that does custom software development. They are fantastic in what they do. They're all industry thought leaders, and they build things for really large enterprises. So with our training, we do all kinds of training here: Confluence, Portfolio, JIRA Service Desk, Agile HR, which we're doing right now as a free webinar. And then in our consulting, we do customized JIRA configurations. We do business transformations. So if you're doing an Agile transformation, we help support that through Atlassian tools. We also do ongoing support services if that's something you would like. And custom development, that's our Oasis Digital company. We make a lot of add-ons for JIRA. We also work with some very large companies like Google and NASA. So yeah, if you need to build it, we can help you build it. All right, that's the end of the commercial. Thank you for sitting through that. So let's talk about how we use some of these Agile processes internally to make our HR processes better. So we have a rapidly changing hiring environment in the software industry. I'm sure you're experiencing that as well in whatever industry you're doing HR in. Things are changing a lot faster than they used to. So we need to be able to change according to not only our own needs, but the needs of the environment. So specifically, what we want to do is we want to use all technology available to us. And I do understand that in a software industry, that's sometimes a lot easier than in an older industry. I used to work as a teacher overseas, and we couldn't even access Gmail behind the firewall. So that made it very hard to get information back and forth. But we want to use technology so that we can spend our time focusing on the quality of a candidate or the quality of our internal employees and help them grow, instead of wasting time tracking tasks, doing paperwork, or even doing phone interviews. We've also gotten rid of that. For us, it is the quality, not the quantity of contact. So we don't need to talk to them 100 times. We just need to talk to them enough times to know that they're going to be the right fit. Consequentially, and this is a nice policy that I've heard a couple of companies doing, we tend to do generous severance so that if we do need to let someone go, It's not weighing down the manager. Is this person going to land on their feet? Like, we always leave people, as the Boy Scouts would say, better off than we found them. That's the goal. So that kind of helps reduce unnecessary contact as well. And then automation. We want to automate as much as possible about our hiring process so that we can focus on our work. Now, if we were a very large company, we might simply outsource that too. But we are also a small company, so we still have high touch with the hiring process internally. So we have a position called project coordinator, which is basically an entry-level project manager. And they have a constantly changing job description. We're always looking for stronger communication skills, and we really like to use this job as an entry-level position to figure out where that person might be a good fit in the company later. So we watch them as they grow into this position, and then groom them hopefully for future positions in the company. Like, we've seen people move from project coordinators to consultants. We've seen them move from coordinators to developers of software. We've seen them move from coordinators to marketing people. It's a really good feeder job, actually. So the way that we filter the noise, which is very important, even if the person doesn't meet their specific hiring criteria, we can still flag them for another job inside the company. So sometimes we see people that sign up for this job, but you know what? Actually, you might be a good consultant instead. So let's kind of run you into that. That's another way that we use this as a feeder job. We always start with a video interview. This tells us usually within a few seconds if they're a yes or a maybe. You can really tell by their presence, because we need our project coordinators to have a really good face for the company. They need to have good communication skills. They need to be able to use technology. All of that is apparent by their ability to film themselves. Even though the technology exists in everyone's pockets, some people just don't have a mindset to do that, or they don't know how to save the video, or to attach it to an email, or to upload it to a private link to YouTube. So that tells us really, really quickly, can this person use technology? Do they have a presence? Can they craft their answers in a clear and concise manner? So that way, nobody internally has spent more time than posting a job description yet. We haven't had to talk to the person. We haven't had to waste any of that time. And then we can circulate the video interviews just to a small number of people. So what we do from there is we will take their resume and their video interview, and we'll screen those. Only HR does that. They're basically, they're not bothering the people that are doing the work that this new hire will potentially do. They're just, quickly filtering. They know the company culture. We also definitely hire only, not only, but specifically for culture and fit right now. Again, we're a small company. The hiring manager gives some feedback. Then the hiring manager has a phone screening with the person, and then only then do we bring them in for an interview with the relative potential coworkers that person might be working with. So again, if I'm a consultant and we're hiring maybe for a consultant, I'm not seeing them, I'm not even hearing about them until a couple days before the interview, when I'm sent the video interviews and I'm told, hey, take a look, this is a new potential candidate, what do you think? So my time's not being wasted. My coworkers' time's not being wasted, the candidate's time isn't being wasted, and HR's time is not being wasted either, because we've figured out ways to use tools to make this just that much more automated. Then we do selection, and then we always have a retrospective at the end in a very agile process of how did that go, how did the interview go, how did the process go? Do we want to tweak our job posting? Do we need to change any of the language? Are we getting too many people that are not quite a fit, but they'd be a fit for something else, in which case a language tweak would really help maybe find a new class of people. So that's how we hire project managers. Developers we do in a slightly different way. Software developers have to have a deep technical skill set. We are looking for either technical leaders that are already high up in their industry, or recent graduates who have a lot of potential to be technical leaders. On our software side, we want industry leaders. So specifically, we want to know, can you do the job? And the nice thing about hiring for a software developer is this is really easy to tell. Can you live code on a screen in front of students, clients, etc.? Because that's what we do. We show up on site, we start building software for people. We go teach a class, we debug right there live. So how do we do that? First, we have an HR resume screen that happens. If there's no red flags there, it gets passed on to our technical lead, because HR doesn't know as much as the technical lead knows about software ability. So it gets passed on to them. They do a technical screening of that. If they say yes, now it's back to HR. HR calls them up, and we're still kind of tweaking this process. Every time we hire someone new, it changes a little bit, which is good because we're iterating all the time. So sometimes we do a technical interview, but more importantly, we basically say, hey, we're going to be on this Google Hangout at this time. We'll see you there. And so now we find out, can the person use technology? Can they communicate remotely? Because a lot of our work is remote. And then if they're on there, we basically do a live coding session with them. So we spend some time doing some pleasantries, and then we have a problem for that person to solve in a language that they know. And we say, hey, here's a business problem we have. How would you solve this? Go ahead and build it with us. And that right there, it is very high pressure, but we can tell within one session, can this person work with their new potential coworkers? Can this person code? Can they handle any pressure? Do they even understand the environment that they're working in? Now, we are also clear that they'll be doing that. So that will also filter out any potential people that may not be able to do it. If everything works out well, then we bring them in for an interview. Now we haven't wasted too many people's time. And then usually by then, yeah, they're already good. And then again, we have a retrospective and debriefing at the end. How did our process work? Can we improve this at all? All right, so 2 more case studies, and then we'll call it a close. So professional development. We are always looking to move project coordinators up to consultants, or up to marketing people, or up to event coordinators. We're always looking to have developers move up to be a technical lead and a thought leader in the industry. We find that, just like living organisms, if we're not growing, we are experiencing entropy. So we always want people growing. It also keeps people interested and excited in their work. Nobody wants to plateau. Once they plateau, they start looking for something new, and we want to keep them here because we all know the cost of hiring someone new. So professional development for us is really critical to our organization. It adds tangible value to the organization, and it builds internal trust, which then reinforces the organization. It also reinforces the culture. If we're all growing, if we're all looking to help others grow within our company, it provides just like the warm and fuzzy place that you want to come to work every day. I know that my coworkers want me to succeed. I want them to succeed. And it creates not an environment of competition, but of extreme cooperation. So we want people moving forward and growing. We try to support them in public speaking, in writing. We send them to conferences. We send them to conferences as speakers. We have a requirement that everyone speak at a development conference at least once a year. That's a pretty, it's almost like publish or perish in a way in the academic world, but it's not as scary, I think. So what we do in JIRA is we track the conferences that they have applied to. We track the conferences that they're accepted to. We track the conferences they attended. We track the certifications that they've gained. We track the languages that they can program in, and a range of, I understand what this language is, to I'm extremely proficient and I can architect software in it. And in that process, this means that we don't have to put somebody on a single track. We can watch them grow, and then as they grow into something, we can then support them even more in that. So I can't tell you the number of employees that have gone through this company and started out as one thing and morphed into something completely different. And we watch them become better human beings because of it. And they can watch themselves grow, which is amazing. So they get feedback. So, all right. Another hallmark of Agile is continuous improvement. The way that we get continuous improvement is through feedback. Feedback improves our climate. It helps us adapt. It helps us identify problems. So one example that's kind of HR-ish, this might be a little bit of a stretch, but it is a cool example. One of our company founders is a school board member in the Afton School District here in St. Louis County in Missouri. And they used to have school district externally led, culture and environment surveys. They were done once a year. It took 3 to 6 months to process, and then it made it to the board. Well, you can only imagine just how useless that information is. Now we have an 18-month delay from the first possible time that something might affect. And what do you do with an 18-month delay? That person may be gone. The problem may have compounded exponentially since then. And even then, how do you go back and tell somebody, 18 months ago you made a mistake? That might not even be on their radar anymore. So the cycle time between ideation or discovery and value and change is so long that nothing's going to get fixed. So what did they do? They basically decided, we're not going to use this external company anymore. We are going to switch over to internally led climate surveys. We're going to do them every, I think they did it once a month or at least once a quarter. And of course, the faster you can do them, you eventually get into this lean problem of batch size versus processing time. If we did a survey a day, that might take too much work. If you do a survey a quarter, it might not be enough feedback. So I think they're still playing with this actually, but they turned it into a continuous process multiple times a year. Because it was happening more frequently, they could pull on less information. It now takes 1 week to process. So that means that after any given survey, a week later, the staff, parents, and the board get this information all at the same time. They can react to it. Oh, here we go, sorry. It's been a while since I talked to him about this. They do this after every event, every service, every program. So now everyone's getting this feedback, and we all know that, especially in HR, that when you get near real-time feedback, the person can associate the behavior correction better in their mind, or they can solidify the behavior because they know that was a really good thing. They remember it, it's fresh, it's solid now. So as a result of that, and they are quite proud of this, as a result of this continuous improvement effort, they won the 2018 Outstanding Board Award. And recognized as the only district recognized for human and organizational capital, I believe in the state, which was pretty impressive. So that's just a lovely example of the importance of continuous improvement and continuous feedback. All right, so lastly, I want to close on talking about using technology to improve HR. Some of the things that we do internally, just as a review, we do video interviews. We use software that helps people automatically schedule appointments. We use a combination of G Suite and stuff like Calendly. So you can set up appointment times. People can self-select appointment times. There's no need for a human to sit in between and coordinate. We use online meetings wherever possible. There are lots of great online meeting tools out there. We're using one right now called Zoom. We also use another one called Blue Jeans, and we also use Google Hangouts with G Suite. You can port these technologies to your phones. You can use them in multiple sites. You can set up conference rooms. I mean, like, online meeting technology really is there now. And Zoom, for one, I know that their founders, his goal is to eventually make online meetings better than in-person meetings. I'm interested to see how that's going to play out in the future, but that's pretty exciting. You can use things like Agile Boards to do these big visible information radiators, just like this one. You can look at every process that you have and make it visible to the people that need to see it. Even if you could get this link, if you don't have permission to see this information living under this board, it'll never even show up for you. So it is secure, but visible and transparent at the same time. And then finally, workflow automation. We can set up complex or simple workflows depending on our tracking needs. We can have them update external systems automatically. We can give time back to the employees, which saves the company time. The employees can work on improving the environments around them and just increase job satisfaction. Nobody wants to do TPS reports, for those of you that have seen Office Space. All right, so that is the end of the content for this presentation. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I'm going to stick around if you have any questions about all of this. But otherwise, if you don't want to ask questions now, you can always come to xpm.com and click on Contact over here. We have a contact form that actually dumps inquiries straight into JIRA. They appear as a ticket, kind of like this, which is pretty cool. And I'm happy to talk more about the software individually, about the processes. I'm actually kind of an avid fan of modern HR practices. I listen to a lot of podcasts about them. So if you have any questions now or later, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, thank you very much for attending, and I hope you guys have a very pleasant day.